See everybody. International Women's Day. Here we are. Woohoo! And then the wisest men in the industry are here too, so let's give them a shout out. Well done, fellas. Because this isn't about males or females. This is about growth and development and being a better human being. That's what today is all about. And we're going to dive into the topic of vibe, which is an exploration of a really interesting topic, you. And you're going to do some self-discovery today. We're going to cover a lot of categories. And I want you to view today as a seed planting opportunity. And after today, nurture and feed that and see it grow and develop so that you could be even more authentic and integrated between the things that you really are and the way that you show up in the world. So let's get this thing started with some energy for each other. So I'm going to ask everybody to hop up out of your seat and just find an unfamiliar face and introduce yourself to them and say, I'm so glad you're here. So here's our first question. It is, what's one word, so one word that you would use to describe someone's vibe? So when you hear about someone's vibe, and let's stay on the positive side of things today, vibe, what is a word that you would associate with that? And even though that's an error, I actually think that that's true. It's somebody's potential. What's a word? And we're just trying to make sure that the polling is working on this and getting your inputs. So it's your energy. And see, as more people say the same word, that word gets bigger. So it's got, so being positive, mojo, yeah. It's like, that person has good mojo, right? Presence, funky, groovy, vivacious. Oh, that's a vibe that I want. Positivity, personality, spunky, something that's contagious, right? When somebody has a really great energy and vibe, it's like it kind of makes you feel that same way. And same thing with the positive. It's somebody's pizzazz or pizzas. Oh, good. So we got 52 people on this one. I love it. Look at that energy with the sun over it. I mean, that's a great way for us to think about vibe. I remember years ago, I went to a conference, and it was the first time I have gone to this conference. It was NSA, National Speakers Association. Yeah, quite different. And I didn't know anybody, and I was feeling insecure. Some of you might be feeling that way today, where you're just unsure of the surroundings. And I saw this man, and he just had that kind of vibe. It was almost like he was like a warm fireplace, and I could, you know, he did, like, big man, and I conveniently got to sit next to him. And we got to know each other, and come to find out that he's an executive at Comcast. And then he invited me in to have a follow-up conversation with him, and I've been a partner of Comcast ever since. I was in 2001. And his name is Philemon Lopez. So here he was, an executive, and it was his vibe that attracted me to him. And then I've benefited from our friendship and our partnership since then. So I just want you to think about some people in your life who have that kind of vibe, the way that you described up here, with that pizzazz and that energy and that contagious way of making you feel so vibrant and excited. And that's essentially what we're talking about today. So if we were going to break it down into 4 components, vibe is an acronym, and like Troy said, you know, we're familiar with acronyms. So today, let's break this one down into pieces. And the V stands for values, your core values. And we're going to first look at GSK's values, because I think it's a really healthy marriage to see, you know, how many of your organization's core values match up with your own personal values. And then we'll go through an exploration of what are your core values and try to narrow it down to like your top 5. Then your interests, what are some things that you just find interesting? You may never get paid to do them, but you enjoy them, and they bring energy and value into your life. And then B are beliefs, the beliefs you have about yourself. And then E is energy sources. And any one of these 4 pieces we could spend the duration of a week talking about. So today, like I said, it's a seed planting day to understand more about what is your vibe, and then how could you bring that into life more often than you do now already. So core values, how many of you would say that you already know what your core values are? So I think most of us think that we know, and you may very well know what your core values are, but excuse this expression, do you know them at gunpoint? Like if somebody said, what are your core values? Could you just wrap them off like this? Or are you going to be more like, well, it's like trust and, are we grasping for our core values? Are we really clear? And what is the value of knowing your core values? What are the benefits of knowing your core values? A couple of them are that it keeps you grounded, right? Like the visual we're going to look at in a second is a tree. And think of your core values as like your roots, where it keeps you steady and in state. It also helps you make decisions because it helps you to understand, what is okay and not okay with you. It's like your boundaries. And because of that, an interesting way to discover what your core values are, like your true core values, is to ask yourself, what is something that I cannot tolerate? Like I just can't stand when this thing happens. And then what's the core value that's being triggered in you when that thing happens? Right? There's a whole host of things that we might wish weren't part of human life, but there are certain things that utterly irritate you. So what are some of those things? We've got some mics around the room to hear your voices. Give me an example of something that drives you nuts. When people are late for meetings. Okay, so if you were going to peel that onion back a little bit and say there's a core value here that gets triggered off when that happens, what's a word that would describe it? Yeah, so it's respect. And for some it might be organization, like I value being organized or I value time management. But for you, like the word is important because if I said time management, you're like, yeah, that too, but what really I value is respect. So another hand back there. Justice. Okay, and so what's an example of something that you experience? I mean, there's a whole host of things, right? And so knowing that you deeply value justice helps you to understand, like, this is why I'm responding so passionately about this thing that I perceive as in direct conflict with that. Excellent, thank you. Yes. Okay, yeah, so when people are complaining and not doing anything to change it, so what would you say is a core value underneath? Yeah, responsibility. Ownership. It might even be resourcefulness, right? Because other people might have the same thing, but the value that's being triggered in you might be slightly different. So responsibility is for you. Excellent. Yes? Truth. Okay. And tell me more about an example when you see something in conflict with that. Right. Yeah. So to take it as truth. Yeah. So knowing that that is a core value and all of the situations in which that might be triggered. So please come on in, grab a seat. Give me one more example of something that irritates you, and then I want you to, yes. Lack of accountability. Okay, so when people don't take accountability, like, I don't know, or finger pointing or something like that. So what is a core value underneath there, do you think? So accountability, ownership, responsibility. Yeah, thank you for that. So here are the examples that people are sharing, and it may also help to see the GSK core values, and then I'll put a list of additional core values up here for you to just get some thoughts going. But again, the word is significant. So for you to think clearly about what is it that's underneath the surface for me, and what is a word that expresses what that core value is, and then how can I honor that and understand that it's almost like an Achilles heel, right? So like, if your core value is responsibility and anything that happens that is in conflict with that, you're going to react in a way. And so it's a helpful way for you to understand like why we get so upset about certain things. I always go back to my list of core values, and inevitably there's something on that list where I'm like, that's it. Like number 1 for me is love. Number 2 is compassion. When I see something that I view as lacking compassion, it's similar to your justice example. It just gets me unhinged. And then sometimes I'm not the kind of person that I want to be, right? I'm not as resourceful or as present or even as accepting. I'm more judging, and that's not helpful in my being a leader. So here are the GSK core values, a lot of which you could take personally, and you could say, look, I want to live this way myself with courage. Troy used the word courage this morning. Accountability, you all said that. Development, teamwork. Working together. And so we're going to put the GSK values off to the side, and here are a couple of other ones that might resonate for you. Compassion, knowledge, being creative, justice, friendship, love, loyalty, respect, wisdom, Honesty, you had said that one, but like the truth. Work ethic, contribution, making a difference. So take a minute and write down words that resonate for you. So in your booklets here, if you look in the middle, there's a note-taking guide, which says the formula. It's really your formula. So you could write my formula. And right up here in the blue box, it says values. And this would be a great space for you to write down words that come to mind. And then just anything that comes to mind, jot it down. And then go back through your list and put a little star next to the ones where you're like, these are the most important. And I would say 3 to 5. You don't want to have more than 5 on your final list. 3 is really the number of things that we can remember without a list. So 3 would be easier. But no more than 5, because then it just gets too much. Because even when we think about vibe, the visuals that we were having earlier of those people that had that great vibe, it's probably those who had that consistent vibe that we remember most, right? It's not like, oh, that one's person having a good day, I want to go hang out with them. It's more like, they're always an energy resource for me. Yeah, beautiful. Yes? Motivation or drive, yeah, that inner drive. Yes?
Empathy?
Empathy, yeah. The sister of compassion, but it's different, isn't it? Yeah. Objectivity? Yeah. So not being judgmental, really being objective and open-minded. Objectivity, beautiful word. Yes? Faith. Yeah, having faith and belief. Humility. I read a great quote about humility this week, and it said, humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. Yeah. Awesome. All right, so taking these core values and finding a way to bury them in your brain. There's going to be a couple of action items that I'm going to empower you with or request of you. And one of them is to take the list of your top 5, 3, however many ranked as like the most important values, and type them up and then put them somewhere. Like we have ours, we have a family core values, and then I've got my own personal core values, and our families are on our refrigerator. And the reason why is for this reason. It's a Roy Disney quote: when your values are clear to you, making decisions becomes easier. So when we have a tough family decision, go to the list, and it usually makes a pretty obvious choice out of what's in front of us, or at least guides you in the right direction and helps you to feel grounded in what you believe in. And that's a reason why it's so important. So I'll share a personal story with you. My husband, Mike, and I got married in 1998. We had an Irish-themed wedding. We had bagpipers, Irish step dancers. We went to Ireland on our honeymoon. It was all about Ireland. It was in New York. And we had these Celtic wedding bands made. They were exactly the same. Nothing fancy, but they had that Celtic weave representing, you know, infinity. And they were exactly the same. So now, 2 years later, we were living in Boston at the time, and Mike was working for Oracle, and he was up for a promotion. So they were either going to move us to San Francisco or Philadelphia. So we had a decision to make. It was the dead of winter, and I said, Mike, the most responsible thing that we could do would be to hop on an airplane, go to an island somewhere, and make this decision in the sun. He said, okay. So we get tickets to St. Thomas for the weekend. This is the only time we've ever done that, unfortunately. But so we fly off to St. Thomas. Now we're in the plane, and I'm not the most patient person in the world, but I'm working on it. And I said, let's do our plus-minus list now. We'll make our decision, and then we'll spend the rest of the weekend celebrating. So sure enough, on a cocktail napkin, you know, we're writing this out. And we're weighing out the options, you know, San Francisco or Philadelphia. We chose Philadelphia because we're from the Northeast, and we figured it would just be easier to stay in touch with our family members. So we high-five, yeah, we're moving to Philadelphia, Philly proud. We go to the place, the hotel. We have a beautiful weekend. Now it's Sunday. Bags are packed there at the concierge. We're laying in a hammock, looking at the beautiful palm trees for the last time. And I said, let's go in. And he says, let's go in. The ocean. we're going to be all sandy and salty, and that's nasty. And I said, come on, carpe diem, right? We're going to be in freezing cold Boston in a matter of minutes. Let's seize the day. So reluctantly, he follows me into the water. We are in there for less than 1 second when he's like, oh, I dropped my ring. I said, you dropped your ring? He says, yeah, I don't know how. And I'm like, I know how, because you're always playing with it. You know, it's 2 years in, buddy, you know, this is something you should be used to. But so anyway, it was crystal clear water. I could see my turquoise and Caicos nail polish right through the water. And I was like, I'll just go get it. So I'm searching around for the thing, can't find it, you know, many failed attempts. At one point, I said, Mike, stay right here. I ran up to the beach. I grabbed goggles, because I saw this kid with goggles earlier, didn't even ask him, just took his goggles, came back, you know, searching around. So now the waves are coming, the sand is shifting around, and Mike's like, I hate to say this, but our taxi's coming and we need to leave. And I said, well, there are 2 options here. The first is I saw a dive shop down the beach. If I had enough air, I could totally get this thing, because we're like right in the vicinity. And he's like, all right, dive girl, where is this coming from? I said, okay, I know it's a little unrealistic. The second thought is they were made together. They should stay together. He says, what are you going to do, throw your ring in the ocean? I said, yep. So I take mine off. I said, every day I'm going to look at it and know that its partner is off in the Atlantic somewhere. And then I'm going to have to relive this again. The point of the trip was to start a new life. The point of the trip was fun, the value fun, right? Unification, joy, love, compassion, new opportunities. I don't want to think back on this trip and think about what an idiot you were. And he's like, thanks a lot. So I take it off, we kiss it, we throw it in, we're laughing. We get back to our blanket, I return the goggles. We had this disposable camera, handed it to a stranger, put my arm around Mike, you know, can you take our picture? And he says, oh, did you two just get married? And I said, no, we just threw our rings in the ocean. He's like, oh, all right, crank it up. So the point of that is, in that moment, I had a decision to make. And I had to go back to my core values. And this is before I actually thought about them the way we just did. And I thought, what do I really care about? I really care about this relationship. I really care about our future. I really care that this is a moment that we remember. And look, I'm sharing it with you. It's a moment we remember now in a really funny, lovable way. So just the end of that story is, the taxi was there. We were sandy. We were salty. It was gross. Mike is right again. And so I said to the taxi driver, you know, is there a flea market or something that we could hit on the way to the airport? I need a string to tie around my finger to remember I'm with this guy. And he's like, as a matter of fact, there is. So he pulls over. So the meter's running. We're booking around this place. And we find this vendor that was selling rings, had a size 13. Shocking. So we got our rings. Anyway, they made our fingers green. And then a few years later, we wore them until we found replacements. A few years later, we were in a gas station at a rest stop. And they sold rings that have the Celtic weave, 2 for $20. And that's still what we're wearing today. So, you know, it's not about the ring, right? All right, so knowing your values helps you make decisions is the key point of that. So interests. Interests are things you may never get paid to do. You may never even admit to other people that you like to do these things. But these are things that bring you joy, right? You may be awful. Like maybe you're just like the worst singer ever, but you love singing in your car or your shower or somewhere that it just like lets you release something and you feel liberated and you love it. And that's an interest to you. Yeah, see, interest is interesting to me that it's so hard to think about. It's so hard. You know, there are other parts of Vibe that I would think would be more challenging for us. But what I have found is this one is a tough one. Why do you think that this is so hard for us to even think about? Part of the reason why this topic is a tough one is because we're so darn busy. Our lives are so full, right? And then we just keep adding more stuff into our life, and our interests kind of got backburnered and waysided, and now like we don't even remember what they were. You know, or what they could be. Like what's something that intrigues you where you're like, I have no talent or experience in this whatsoever, but I'm interested in figuring it out. Like as an adult, I'm learning how to be a quilter. right? So Philemon, remember the person that I was telling you about who I met at that conference? Philemon is an amateur photographer. This is the kind of stuff that he takes pictures of. He goes around the world in his free time. He does mission trips as well. And while he's there, he takes pictures and then he couples them up with quotes. And then he started this thing called like daily motivation. Philemon Lopez, if you look him up, it's a really cool thing. So sometimes you have to look at things differently. This is a great one. This is a great one for us, women. Not in the hippo part, but more in like the speaking out part and letting your voice be heard. And this one too is great. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. True indeed. So I struggled with this one and I was like, I don't think I have any interests. I think I'm hobbyless. And then I thought, this can't be true. Am I hobbyless? Do I have no interest? And then I dug a little deeper and I was like, all right, well, there's some things that I do that are unique to me that other people may not find as fun. So one of them is thematic birthday cakes. So my kids like their birthday cakes. So my daughter's into the beach, and for those of you who are ever interested in making this, somebody had recommended using brown sugar, which would be a lot of sugar for the sand. It's graham crackers. Graham crackers in a food processor, voila, there you go, there's your beach. So we make these thematic cakes, everything from like their emoticon person on their Wii TV or whatever. And this year, my son was turning 16. This is literally last week. And he says to me, and I haven't made their cake since they were like 12. And he says, so have you thought about what you're going to do for my birthday cake? And I was like, no. It was the day of his birthday. So I was thinking, okay, 16, it's all about driving, right? He's going to get his permit. Those of you who live in Pennsylvania, be warned, my son's on the road. So the license plate in Pennsylvania looks like this. And so I decided to make him a cake that looked like a license plate, Sweet 16. And then, this is the funny part, this other cake as a backup, I made look like a traffic light. So he goes to take his permit test. The one question he got wrong, I kid you not, what order are the colors on a traffic light? I said, M&M's, right? M&M's, So anyway, he still passed, so he's on the road. So now thinking about interests, here are a couple categories to just get your mind going on this one. So you might have interest in sports and fitness. That would be either participating in them or watching them. Cooking, food, so maybe it's around entertaining. It might be about, like I know somebody that does the recipe of the month, or they do Blue Apron or HelloFresh or one of those where they can just experiment with different kinds of food. Arts and music, so again, it's maybe that you have the talent yourself where you enjoy the experience of other people's talent, watching, listening, participating, going to concerts, travel and outdoors. So whether you're just, you love to explore places or you're an outdoors person, or maybe it's even like more like the mission trip. And then there are things that you might be interested in that aren't up here. So it might be something around your pets or your other extracurricular activities, your church activities, whatever it may be. So I just want you to take a few minutes, and I'll set the clock for 3 because I want you to do some time, just your own self-exploration about what are some of your interests, and then I want you to go talk to somebody either sitting right next to you or get up and move around a little bit and share some of your interests, because your interests make you interesting, whatever they are. So here's a list. And talent beyond what we do at work. A lot of the conversations that I had the opportunity to listen in on, there's some talent in this room. So what were some of the values that you had, interests that you had the chance to explore with your partner and with yourself? What were some of the interests that came out of this exercise? All right, so for those of you, there's like dopamine that comes from that, because it's like the achievement hormone. Excellent. Did you ever write anything down that you already did just so you could cross it off? Yeah, I've done that. I'm like, I already got the dry cleaning. Dry cleaning. And what a great example of, you don't necessarily have to go outside of your workplace or your home or wherever to do your interests. You can encourage people in the grocery store, and you probably do. So wherever you have access to other human life, you can be encouraging, whether even that's on social media, putting some positive words out there. Excellent. So, this is a great opportunity for you to think about, when am I going to do this thing that I just wrote down? Especially if it's the thing that you haven't done in a while. And this quote could help you. It's a Walt Disney quote, and we all know what Walt Disney created. But if you can dream it, you can do it. If there's something you wrote down where you're like, gosh, I'd really love to speak fluent Greek, you can. I'd really love to travel to these different locations, you can. I'd really love to, be able to roof 5 houses this year, you can. Just schedule it out. I mean, she can. I don't know about if I can, but I probably could if I really, really tried. So making time on your calendar to invest in the thing that you find interesting, or learning something new, it makes you more interesting. It makes you more you. I mean, think about the variety of interests we heard about in the room today. And those are just the people that volunteered to share with us. And the things that just become apparent to you throughout your life where you're like, I'd really like to try that. Give it a go. We get one shot at this thing called life. What am I, Prince all of a sudden? Purple and everything. But we have one shot, and you want to make the most of it. So if there's something that you're like, gosh, I would really like to, then tell someone and go do it. And the reason why I say go tell someone is because accountability is a big factor in why we would actually take a step out of our comfort zone and try something. So we can learn from other people, we can participate in these activities with other people, like the wine connection, or the travel, or if you've gone and done something, or the ancestry that you're like, gosh, that's really interesting, I'd like to learn more about that. Or even if you have no interest, it's something that it's interesting to talk about. Yeah. So another thing to just raise back into our consciousness and our awareness, and then time block for the things that you wrote down so that you make sure that you actually invest some of your lifetime energy into it. So the B in vibe. The B in vibe is beliefs. And we know that there are a lot of different directions we could go with that one. Today we're going to explore the beliefs you have about yourself. Like, what are the kinds of things that you say when you look in the mirror? So as a role model example of what I would love for us to be saying when we look in the mirror. And then what happens? And then what happens, right? Now we're looking in the mirror, and the I am sound a little different. Not a, I am so lucky, I am so cute, I am so happy. It's more like, I am so old. I am so fat, I am so whatever. You fill in the blank. Whatever it is that you say that is unkind, and the way that we say it, which is so unkind. Talk about not encouraging. So I may be the only one in the room, but I know from experience I'm not. And it doesn't matter about your gender. This is like a human thing. So we grow up and we forget that those two words in combination, I am, are the two most powerful words in the English language when they're together. I am. Whatever we say after that is significant. Because one of the biggest drivers of our behavior is to be consistent with the way we see ourselves. You ever hear yourself saying something like, well, you know me, I'm a procrastinator. Or you know me, I'm a slob. Or you know me, I'm just not an athlete. And so we're like enabling ourselves to be consistent with the way that we're describing ourselves. So it's helpful for us to take a look and say, well, what am I saying to myself? And how could I edit my language? How could I improve the quality of the descriptors and the adjectives I'm using to describe myself? And what difference would that make? So I'm here to tell you it will make a profound difference, because it will start to re-trigger your brain, and you'll start to find truth in the way that you're describing yourself. So, what are you really? And here's another truth that I know. That is true. So let's learn more about what makes you so. So beliefs, the beliefs you have about yourself. We're going to engage in an exercise right now that might challenge you, so I'm going to give you some guidelines. One, we're going to write statements that begin with I am. And this is one where I want you to write as many as you possibly can. But these statements must be positive. They must be inclusive of things you know you already are. So acknowledge your strengths. These are not all a long shot. They're not all a stretch. There are things that you actually already are, and everybody who knows you would vouch for that. So own those. Like if you're really organized, if you're kind, if you're patient, if you're generous, if you're really intelligent, if you're a change agent, whatever it is that you know you already are, own those. And then take the things that you have been saying to yourself that are not helpful, that are not really the best version of you, not the true vibe. I want you to take those and inverse them. So for example, one of mine for the longest time was, and it was an excuse, I'll admit it, I'm impatient. In fact, I shared with you that I'm impatient, the whole ring story. And it gave me an excuse to be impatient. But that excuse really wasn't enabling me to be my best authentic self. And it was actually breaking down some of the connections that I worked so hard to build, and some of the ways in which I was affecting people that I'm not proud of. And so I had to shift my thinking and declare I am patient. And especially when my kids were really little, this was like a daily mantra. And I'd be like, God, whatever daily dose you normally would give me, can you triple it? Because I'm out by 8 a.m. I just need a lot of patience to be the kind of person I want to be. So I am patient, I am patient, I am patient, and it has totally affected how I show up. In traffic, I used to be a nightmare. Now, I'm not saying I'm zen and like thrilled, but patient, I'm present, I'm aware that there's nothing I can do about it. Another one that I used to make excuses about was being on time. The person earlier was sharing about that drives them crazy. And I had reasons for that, like stuff came up or there was traffic or unexpected things. And somebody was telling me about a Dr. Phil show that they were watching, interestingly. And she said, yeah, this woman was on Dr. Phil. She was probably trying to talk to me through Dr. Phil. And she said, this woman on his show, and she was saying that her problem is that she's always late. And he said, your problem isn't that you're always late. Your problem is that you're arrogant. And the woman said, arrogant? He says, yes, because whatever you're doing that's causing you to be late is more important to you than the people that you're going to see. And then I went back to core values, and one of my core values is respect. And I saw that as a lack of respect, and it's changed the game for me. So now I'm always, always early, because I believe in treating people with respect and the impact that my actions are having on other people. So I am on time is the way that I've said that. So here's a couple of I am statements, most of which are from my own list. Take them if you want them. This is an opportunity for plagiarism. If you like them, own them. I am innovative. Some of these are yours, actually. I am high performing. I am trusted. I am patient. I am on time. I am passionate. I am strategic. I am curious. I am a change agent. I am healthy. I am inspirational. And for all of you, a request of mine is to write, I am enough. If you, somewhere on your list, I am enough. For some of you, that's going to be even hard to write. So I am enough, because if we really believed we were enough, a lot of these other things would be A-okay. So please take a moment, self-exploration. I am going to ask for some volunteers, just so you know, to share some of your I am statements. But please take some time to identify who you really are. I want you to go home, get a Post-it note, write those 3 things on it, and put it wherever you brush your teeth. And if that's not possible, put it somewhere else, like maybe where you get ready in the morning. Because most of us, I hope, are brushing our teeth twice a day. So that would be 2 opportunities for you to engage with your I am list, and preferably say them out loud. If that would deem you a weirdo, then you could just say them to yourself, that's fine. But if you could just get in the practice of saying them out loud so that your mind starts to hear what you're saying, it's literally like self-hypnosis, right? So you're gonna say it until you believe it, and then once you're mastering those 3, then you can replace one with a new one. But just pick 3 at a time so it's on the ready. And when you're in this position to make decisions, leaning back on your core values and your IMs will help you get where you want to go. Awesome. Thank you for going through that exercise, and just see the difference. See what happens. Just take my word for it and see what happens. The I ams, it's really, really deep. Okay, so now we're going to get into E, the energy sources. Oh wait, before we do that, I wanted to capture some of these IMs up here. And just know when you're putting this into the polling, it's anonymous, and we can capture it. So we're going to be able to give this back out to you for follow-up and as a reminder to encourage each other to live these things. So put some of the beliefs you have, the IMs, just into one word and make your own. So being strong, beautiful, reliable, kind, a warrior, a perfectionist, a Christian, smart, human, peacemaker, free, calm. Look at that word, look at that. And if we just flip the am and the strong, I am strong, right? Beautiful. Thank you. What a piece of wall art that is. And then there's a famous I am that we remember from this very famous movie. And so today, as Press for Progress, there's the I ams, the who you are as a person, and then the I wills, like what will we do from that place of being? And so the I am, you could fill in a statement and own that as a I am confident or some version of that. And then in your folder, everybody has a I will card. And out at registration, there are Sharpies. And what we're asking everybody to do is to make a commitment. Like what's something that you're going to do to press for progress? And then we're hoping everybody will take selfies, and we're going to be taking pictures out front. And I'm going to photobomb as many as I can or participate in them so that we can really own these things. Because saying that I will is similar to I am. It's not like I hope to, or it would be great if. Saying I will is a declaration of something that you're going to do. So here's one for me: I will mentor other women. I run a lot of mentoring programs, but I'm not always the mentor. And I'm committing to that, and I'm sharing that with you. So just think to yourself, like, what's something that you want to do? And maybe it's something you're already doing and you're going to continue to do that. Or it's something that you're going to offer that's a new experience for you. So the I wills, we're going to capture those outside. We'll take pictures, and we'll leverage that as encouragement for this group going forward. And so Don Miguel Ruiz wrote a couple of great books, and one of them is called The Four Agreements. Some of you might have read that. And he also has this quote, which I think is very pertinent to what we're talking about today. He says, "You see, everything is about belief. Whatever you believe rules our existence, rules our lives. Our beliefs are so powerful, including the beliefs we have about ourselves." So editing the language to make sure that your beliefs are feeding you and not harming you. So the E in vibe is energy sources. Energy sources. And it's important for us to recognize that energy is a fundamental currency of life. Business runs on it, families run on it, we run on it. So energy, unlike time, is something that we can produce more of. Right? Time is 24 hours in a day, God willing. But energy is something that we could create more of if we're thoughtful about it. And we also have to remember that our bodies are performance relevant. So for us to do our work and run all of the different roles that we're responsible for and the things that we contribute to, we need to have energy. So we're going to take a true-false polling quiz. There are 3 questions. All of them are true-false, and we're going to use our polling technologies. So you're going to either write A and hit send, or B, depending. So here's the first question. The best way to think about one's business career is as a marathoner rather than a sprinter. True or false? So the best way to think about one's business career is as a marathoner rather than a sprinter. A is true, B is false. But that is true. In fact, I've seen bumper stickers that say life is a marathon. So I think we've been told that life is a marathon. And I said true when I first learned this too. This is from the Human Performance Institute. They're based in Orlando, Florida. This is not my original intellectual capital here. It's theirs. And I learned from them that it's actually false. That the best way to manage our energy is to think of life as a series of sprints. And if you think about the word oscillation, a word that you're all very familiar with, what goes up must come down, right? What a great song. What goes up must come down. So when you think about breathing, you breathe in, you breathe out. Waves come in, they go out. The sun rises and it sets. So things that are healthy in life oscillate. They go up and they go down. And if we think about our energy as oscillation, then we could be more masterful in how we could create more of it. So we think about what goes up, what goes down. So energy up, we're going to now call stress, or energy out, which means the situations that you're in where you need to give energy to it, whether it's a meeting, an interaction, you're preparing for something, you are looking at a lot of data, whatever it is that you're working on, it's energy out, and we're going to call it stress. Now, stress gets a bad name, right? I'm so stressed out. This is so stressful. Stress we think of as a bad thing, but if we look at stress as more of an opportunity to utilize energy, and think about it as if you were in a gym, in a fitness center, and you were trying to build a muscle, and you lifted up weights, and you were curling the weights. You're stressing your muscle, but then you put the weights down, right? You don't curl for a half an hour, you curl for probably a minute or less. So then you have energy in, you put the weights down, which we're going to call recovery. So that's when the curve starts to take a dip, and we get some renewal or recovery, a break. And then we can go back to the peak. And what I have found is most people, if we were looking at our real oscillation curve, we have peak, 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 energy out, and then a quick trip to Starbucks to hopefully get enough caffeine to get back up here, and then maybe a quick nap to, and so we're not really fully recovering the way that the research recommends would be helpful to us. And so some of you are like, well, look, I don't have a nap room here in the office, but you have a fitness center. You have beautiful grounds wherever your offices are, places where you could go walk around, get some oxygen, get a snack, go see someone, read an inspirational quote, listen to a song that you love, look at a picture of people or things that you love, read an app or something that gives you energy, cross something off your list, whatever it is that gives you that boost, and then go back at it. So if we start to manage our lives more like a series of sprints, we could be more energy efficient. And think about what are some realistic ways in which you could give yourself some renewal. So give me some thoughts on that. What are some realistic ways that you give yourself renewal throughout any given workday? So thinking about this opportunity for recovery and doing that strategically, the organization that created this content were studying professional athletes, and they were trying to help these athletes become world-class athletes. So they created this Human Performance Institute particularly for athletes. And then some corporate executives came to the institute and they were like, well, what about us? We don't have trainers, we don't have off seasons, we don't have coaches, we barely get our weekends and evenings. So, what would you suggest for us? And so they said, well, let's look at that. So they created a course called the Corporate Athlete, and they used some of these same principles and said, this is what you need to do. So they worked with Andre Agassi before he was a name that we all knew. And what they taught him to do was, as he was going back to the serving line, that he would have the same mantra that he would say in his head, and he would do this breathing technique, and he would visualize, his serve, and he would just walk himself through that mentally, and then he would do his thing. So that was part of his recovery. It was literally how many seconds, maybe 2, it took him to walk to the serving line. So I'm bringing that up as an example of it doesn't have to be, a week's vacation, although those are good too. It could be just a few seconds in between some sprints that you are actively recovering because you're consciously bringing your awareness to a state of renewal. So please think of ways in which you could practice that. So the second question is, personal effectiveness requires a highly developed capacity for self-discipline and willpower. You really need to buckle down, and you need to work on that, rituals and routines and your self-discipline and all of that. And then I learned that that's actually not true. And Aristotle said it best, where he says, we are what we repeatedly do, which means that we are creatures of habit. And so looking into the research even more, I was trying to figure out, well, how much creatures of habit are we? And scarily, 5% of our behavior is self-regulated, conscious, willpower behavior. 95% of it is automatic, which is why most of our New Year's resolutions vanished by what? January 6th? And that's being generous. Because we think that we have more willpower than we actually have. So if we could take our change and make it more incremental, like bite size, and say, what's one thing I will do right now? And we take a baby step forward. And then we keep doing that thing until we lob it into the 95 and it becomes just how we operate. And then we think about what's another thing that we could do to help ourselves be more efficient, effective, better leaders. And we create rituals and habits so that we could accomplish the things that we're most empowered or excited or responsible to accomplish. So knowing that we have to rely on our rituals and habits. I like this quote. This is also from HPI. Rituals are consciously acquired habits. So like you've thought in advance, this is something I want to manifest. Consciously acquired habits of behavior that enhance energy management in service of a mission. And that's the part that I know resonates with GSK. You're so mission oriented. It's like, if I could create rituals specifically so that I would have the energy capacity to accomplish the mission that we're all a part of, that would be a life well lived. And so today, we're calling that Press for Progress. Like, what are the things that we are up to in the world, and how are we making a difference? And a quote that I love about habits is by Samuel Johnson, where he says, the chains of habit are too weak to be felt until they're too strong to be broken. So as soon as you start to invest your time and energy in something that's unusual for you, it's going to feel sloppy or weak. But the more you commit to it, the more it just becomes how you operate. Like some people, you have the same routine every single day, no matter what. And when you're traveling, it might throw you off a little bit. That's because the chains of your habit are so strong that they can't be broken. So think about what's something that I want to add into my life that I don't already have, that I think would be renewal or beneficial to me and others. So last and final question. This one's about multitasking. And women, we think we're better multitaskers than men. Well, I don't know about that. Give me a reason why multitasking is not an acquired skill that's essential to success in today's complex business environment. So it's not really possible to multitask and to be focused, right? Like, I don't know about you, but I don't want my physician multitasking. I want them focused, or my spouse, or my friends, or my colleagues, or whomever. And we know what it's like when people are multitasking us, when they're like, yeah, no, totally, yeah. Oh my gosh, that sounds so exciting. Really? I can't believe that. And I'm guilty. I've done it to people. So let's not multitask things anymore. It's task switching. So it's okay to go from one thing to the other thing and then come back to this other thing. That's task switching. We're not doing them simultaneously. We're separating them out. So thinking about that multitasking is not a skill, and it's not something that we want to become better at. We want to be aware of giving our true attention to the things that we really care about, because we know how it feels to be multitasked, and it doesn't feel great. So your energy is like a battery pack. So think about these energy sources as your battery pack and the ways in which you can charge yourself up, and be really thoughtful about how you're doing that. So the 4 components of energy are your physical energy. And you know what that's like somebody was saying before about having a bulging disc. You know, when something's wrong and you're in pain, it's game over. Like, your number one objective in life is to get out of pain or to get back to mobility or whatever it is that's in your way of physical energy. So what are some of the components of physical energy? We're going to talk about that in a sec. Then we've got emotional energy. So that's like your feelings. Then we've got mental energy, you know, your ability to concentrate and focus. And then we've got spiritual energy, which is you being aligned with your purpose and being really connected to the things that matter most to you in your life. So on your worksheet, you have a space that says energy management. You could either put it into quadrants or just jot down these words as we go through them. We're going to capture some thoughts on what could you do in each of the 4 areas that would enable you to boost your energy, or things that you already do. So for physical energy, what are some thoughts that come to mind on things that you can do to restore or even to add stress, positive stress, for physical energy? So we have a list of tips that are in your folders as well. It's also from the Human Performance Institute, a couple of movement and nutrition tips that will be helpful and advantageous to this component of your energy management. So here's a couple of quick simple things. Eat something within an hour of waking up. Some of you are not fans of breakfast. So if it's just simply like a banana or you know, a granola bar or something, just to give your metabolism an opportunity to get going. Stand up and sit down 3 times fast. Let's do that now because I feel a little energy lull in the room. So let's do 1, 2, 3. Just do a couple times. Just kind of get yourself moving around. Yeah, I know, it's hard. I'm going to be like, geez, I didn't know I was going to have to work out. Awesome. Yeah, see, just a move. Gosh. We underestimate movement. Yeah. Awesome. Then we've got emotional energy. What are some of the associations you have or examples of emotional energy? Think about peak emotional energy. What are some ways in which you experience that? Yeah, connecting with others. Yep. Laughing, like joy, laughing. Yes. Reading. Yeah, that emotion that you feel from the literature you're reading. Yes. Alone time. Yeah, that like energy, it's like renewal emotion for your emotional energy, especially if you're introverted. Right? If you're introverted and you're in demand all day at work with a lot of interactivity and team engagements and dialogue, sometimes that alone time helps you to restore your emotional energy. Yes. Writing. Yeah, experiencing that craft of writing. Yep, joy, positivity, confidence. These are all relatives of the emotional energy for us to be thinking about. How can I create more of that? Here's one, is you could reread congratulatory emails. I suggest if you don't already have one, that you start a kudos email file. Maybe you just call it confidential or whatever you want to call it. But just, you know, when you get those atta-girls or atta-boys, you just sock them away. And on a rainy day, when you need it, reread them and remind yourself. It's kind of like rereading your IMs in a way. It's like, you know what, I can make that kind of contribution. I've had that impact on people. And if you don't often offer those kinds of emails to your colleagues, I would recommend that you do so. Like when somebody has done something that you really appreciate, and even if it's little, like they helped you with the research, or they gave you the space to share your thoughts in a meeting, or they were an ally for you on something that you deeply believed in, just send them a note and acknowledge that so that people can put them in their kudos files. Read positive quotes. You know, I love positive quotes, and you can put them in your workspace. You could put them on your screensaver. You could, you know, there's apps that offer them just to kind of get your mind thinking in the right direction. And then here's one, right? So it's not who you are that holds you back. We've already covered that with the IMs. Sometimes who we think we're not. So the other one is mental energy. So if we're building these blocks, right, we have our physical, our emotional, and then mental energy. What are some things that you could do to either flex and build your mental energy? And what are things that you can do to restore and recover some of your mental energy? So this is everything from like creative thinking, problem solving. Good ones. All right, so for us to be thinking about mental energy, peaks and valleys, what are some things that we do? Like work is mental energy stress because it's complicated stuff that you're responsible for. How can you recover? You know, what are some things you can do? Breathing, running, walking, thinking, you know, even just meditating to give your mind like the breath it needs to go back to the sprint. So here's some other things. Think of a new way of doing something that bores you. Right, the thing that you constantly procrastinate because you just can't stand to do it. But you're the only one really who's going to do it. So if you can't delegate it, then find another way to do it. You know, like my kids hate putting the trash out. So every week, they're both competitive. So every week I time them. Sounds nuts. But you know, their average time is 4 minutes. So I mean, really, it takes them 4 minutes to do the whole house. It's really not that bad. But it does just get them going. So whatever it is that you could do, maybe you time yourself, maybe you make it a challenge, maybe you do it first. Maybe you listen to like your favorite song while you do it every time so you start to reassociate yourself with that activity. Whatever it is, it's a mental exercise. Here's another one that I find myself doing when I feel like my mind is so crowded with so much stuff. I set my iPhone for 2 minutes and I just dump everything that's on my brain onto a piece of paper, even the cray-cray things. You know, and you look at your list and you're like, whoa, I didn't know that was rattling around up there. But you just dump it out and get it onto a piece of paper, and then I organize it into things I should do, things I could delegate, things I need to decide, and then the things I call to don't, like things, I don't know why I'm even thinking about this, I'm not going to do it. So just, you know, taking a minute to empty out your brain and give yourself some space in there would be great. And then lastly, and very importantly, is spiritual energy. And we're all going to associate different things with that, and that's okay. But spiritual energy is really about being aligned with your purpose. So today when we're talking about pressing for progress, like that thing that brought you here today, because you're like, I want to learn more about myself, I want to develop myself, I want to be more congruent and authentic in how I lead and how I show up, and I want to make progress. I want to be a part of change. That's you tapping into spiritual energy. It's like an alignment with what matters to you. So what are some things that we could do to grow and develop and honor our spiritual energy? To reconnect with what you really care about, looking at your core values, asking yourself how those manifest in your behavior. Those are spiritual energy activities. So here's some other ones. Think about who you love and who loves you. Just do that for a second. Envision the faces of the people that you love deeply and the people who love you. Just bring that into your spirit right now and know that that's something you have access to all day, every day. So when you need a lift or you need some recovery, try that one. How about this one? Notice the present moment. Just be. I love this quote that says, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. Being in the now. Be here now. That's another great mantra. Be here now. To stay focused on the moment just the way it is. Incredible. So these are our energy sources as a refresher. Our physical energy, our emotional energy, how we're feeling and how we're respecting how we're feeling and taking care of ourselves. Our mental energy, knowing when we need some stress, like we need an opportunity to expand our thinking. Maybe you want to try a stretch assignment or something that's out of your comfort zone. And when we need a break, like when you're just fried and you need a minute to recover, give yourself the opportunity to do that. And then your spiritual energy, your alignment with what matters most to you. And so I've got 2 quotes to share with you before we wrap today. One is what I call the syntax for success. So syntax means that the order matters, right? So for example, if I were giving you my phone number and I messed up a couple numbers, it's not my number anymore. So like the order matters. So this is called the syntax for success. Be, do, have. Often people attempt to live their lives backwards. They try to have more things or more money in order to do more of what they think will make them happier. The way it actually works is in the reverse. You must first be who you really are, your vibe, then do what you really love to do in order to have what you want. The formula for success is be, do, have. If we seek abundance, we must be abundant in spirit. Most people do, have, be. Do, have, be, which is do, busy, busy, busy. Yep, I'll take that. Yep, I got that. I'll volunteer for that. I'll own that. So that I can have status, respect, authority, financial gain, whatever it is, and then I could be happy. And then I'll be enough. And then I'll be respected. And that's an exhausting proposition. Like, can you really ever do enough to have enough to be enough? Or should we just put it in the proper order and decide this is how I'm going to be right now? You just did the hard part, which is figuring out what that is. Going through the exercise of vibe, you've been uncovering like what that is really for you. So being that manifest in doing things that are consistent with being that way. And then it's fine to have stuff. Don't be ashamed of wanting things. Just put it in the proper order so that you're not so exhausted. And the people get the benefit of the real you, and you're not reserving that for a day in which you've proven that you're that. So stop proving yourself and start expressing yourself. And I believe that this is true. Ralph Waldo Emerson said it. To be yourself in a world that's constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. Live your vibe. Thank you.